Hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. The new FL Studio 21.3 beta is here, and I'm going to show you my sound design process. I promise to give you guys a ton of Kepler EXO presets for free because by default it doesn't come with presets. So a new plugin they just released is called Kepler EXO. Let me show you inside the DAW. So for those who don't know, the first Kepler was like the Juno, if I'm not mistaken, and it looked pretty simple. And the main thing was the chorus. Okay, so it's like a retro synth and it's based around synth wave type sounds. So super 80s synth right here. It was just built to be an 80s synth. Now they've made a bigger version called Kepler XO. And so in this video, I'm going to sound design from scratch, showing you all the things that I discovered because I just opened this plugin up today. And I'm going to sound design, give you guys a bunch of presets, even presets you don't see me make here. I'm going to give you guys some presets. So in the next 24 hours, I'm going to be sound designing presets for this plugin, and I'm going to put them inside the folder. If you go to busyworksbeats.com, go to the free downloads tab, and then sign in, and then you'll have access to the free downloads. And I'm going to have a presets folder called Kepler XO. So look for that. Okay, so firstly, I was just messing around to make a West Coast bass, just to see what I can make with this synth. Okay, so, so far so good. That's a pretty basic saw wave. Okay, so nothing too complicated as far as the sound design. Now let's open up another synth. And firstly, what I like to do is write the music first, and then I go back to sound design. So let's come up with a chord that goes like, dun. And let's figure out what kind of chord type. Let's say we want to make like a major ninth, or a major, it's got a minor ninth. Why is major ninth not there? Can't determine if I want minor ninth or major. So let's convert this to a major ninth. Yeah, minor ninth. So I'm gonna have the chord go in the background while that bass plays. So as that happens, it sounds convoluted now, but it's because we're leaving it on default. So firstly, let's use a high pass filter to shave off the low end so it doesn't interfere with the bass. And what I'm gonna do is make this bass not have stereo. So it's more mono. And what I want to do is have this filter move over time. So let's add a filter under the VCF, voltage control filter, I believe. And I want this knob to move over time. So what we're going to do is tell it to be modulated by envelope 1. Here's envelope 1 right here. We could use this to move the filter over time. So let's give it a long decay curvature, which means it's going to start with an open filter based on this envelope amount. So this amount determines where it starts. So as you see, if I lower the amount, it starts at a lower value for the filter. So if I have it all the way up, it starts all the way up, and then it slowly decays down to whatever frequency I set. Now to make that 80 sound, we're gonna add resonance that adds that lasery sound. And we're gonna give it a nice long decay curvature so it can ride out. So what I'll do for this is we're at 108 BPM, we're going to drag these notes out and make this section a little bit longer so that way the pads have a longer time to play. And let's say I want some vibrato, so I need to set an LFO to control the pitch. So I haven't figured out the LFO situation yet on here, but if we have an LFO section here, LFO 1, and they've added a mod matrix, so it makes it a little bit easier to modulate stuff. With this type of synth, it used to be just you had to know what was modulating what. Like right here, the cross mod, you have to know what 1 to 2 means. That means oscillator 1 is modulating oscillator 2. If you didn't know that, it'd be very confusing to understand that. And so what we're going to do is go to the mod matrix and select LFO 1. We want a bipolar sine wave, meaning up and down sine wave, to control something. So let's control the pitch, and let's see what that's called in here. Let me see. Oscillator 1 pitch, and then we need to turn the amount up with this knob here. I wish there was a way to control when that kicks in, but like you can hear how exaggerated it sounds. So let's set the LFO 1 behavior here. Let's slow down the rate. And let's add a delay so that it slowly brings in the LFO. To demonstrate this, I'm going to turn the rate up and then add more delay. Delay is his LFO. Is this even on? Oh, that's sync mode. I'm not hearing the delay working. Sounds like it's kicking in right away. So I'm not hearing that delay. And also that range is pretty extreme. I wish there was an easier way to pull in that range, but let's see if we pick the wrong LFO. Let's try LFO 1. Yeah, we picked the right parameter, but the problem is the range is way too extreme. So that's not going to be an option. That's just too extreme. And I'm at like 0.1 values, 0.2. That's just too aggressive. So here's this more subtle. Okay, so it kind of works. Let's widen out with this chorus. The vibrato kind of takes our ear off of the tuning, so that's too distracting. Let's just keep it here for now. So that's some portamento. So if you change chords, I'll exaggerate this effect. Portamento basically takes time to pitch bend between notes. Okay, so the more you have, the more wobbly it sounds. So we'll add that to smoothen out some of the chords. So it took a while to get here, but that is too extreme, this LFO. Okay, so the sound faded out before we could hear it. So let's see if there's a way to sustain that sound. And I think by default, envelope 1 controls the amplitude. But again, I didn't read any manuals, so we're just going to assume that's the case. I guess to test it, we would just hold a note. So if this is true, then by me holding this note, this envelope determines the amplitude. Okay, so that seems true. So we want it to fade, but also kind of stay at a volume. We don't want it to fade and just turn off. Pretty basic. I mean, nothing wild. Let's add oscillator 2. So kind of add like a detune effect, and let's detune this. Now we get more of a deeper sound in the saw. You could also set it to semitone values. But for this, we're not going to do that because that's going to create confusion for you. There's also noise you could fill in to fill out the sound a little bit more. So there's effects in the bottom right. Let's turn this reverb on. And that's going to add that final touch we need. Let's come up with a different chord at the end. Now I'm getting into my music theory bag. So let's flatten the 9th, the 7th, or excuse me, the 5th, 9th, and tonic. Okay, so I think I like that preset. Let's save that. So I'll call this like pad. I'm gonna save it to a folder here. And again, these will be uploaded to our, if you sign into our website, it's called pad. And let's call it like 80s lasery pad. Okay. So instead of the West Coast, down, 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 we're just gonna use down, 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 down. Down, 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 down. Let's just make it 80. Dun, 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 dun. It's hard to determine that last note. I might add like a break beat in here just to, let's see. I don't even know where I have my break beats. New break chord, is that what it's called? Let's see if this works. I'm not going to obsess about the drums because I'm not trying to produce a song. We're just trying to add something in the background so it's not just out of context sounds. We'll make this like half the length. Wow, that's way too fast. Okay, so now I can hear sounds in context. So I want this sound to be like more bright, like that. Is that another oscillator? Let's detune it. There we go. I forgot I had chorus on it initially. Let's save that as another preset. It's kind of West Coasty, but it's kind of like not West Coast. So I'm going to call that 80s bass. So you'll notice over time that a lot of my presets are like modded old presets that just keep evolving. So let's call that like bass 80s West Coast. All right. And let's start a new thing because I don't want to go down, down every single time. Make sure that's on bar. So now I'm going to mess with arpeggios. I like to switch between like modes of sound design. So if I'm stuck on pads, I'll move to leads and bass. If I'm stuck on that, I'll move to drums and arpeggios. If I'm stuck on that, I'll go back to synths and like sound effects. I like to switch mode so I don't get too locked into one pathway. Now let's turn on the arpeggio mode. And one kind of secret that I use is arpeggios when I'm sound designing bell sounds because I get to hear the triggers and the fade outs as it's triggering. Let's add some release here. Let's take off the effect. Let's actually go to default and let's go to arpeggio. So here my secret is decay and release with the arpeggio. Now it looks like the arpeggio doesn't respond to the amplitude, which is interesting. Because I'm pulling up the release time, but it's not adding any like detail. So that's interesting how that bypasses that. So that's interesting. In that case, I stand corrected. But what we could do is use the gate function to determine the truncation of the note. And I like those little gaps because it makes the ear grip onto it. Let's leave chorus for the end here. And what I want to do is give it more of a transient bite. So let's go to envelope 2 modulation and give it a quick decay curvature. So now its pitch will drop from high to low. And we could determine how high the pitch is. So now it adds a transient tick, tick, tick type sound. Okay, now let's work with the actual sound wave. I believe this is pulse with modulation, and then we have a sub-octave. So that's interesting. So let's get away from the saw sound for now. Let's use the pulse wave. And you can mess with the pulse wave modulation to get different tones. So what I like to do is mess with that using an LFO. Again, I'm not sure if all this will like happen in real time or if it locks. Let's do bipolar sine, and let's link that to the... Let me see if you can right click. It'd be so much easier if we could right click and just do it internally like that. But let's go to destination and let's select DCO1 pulse width modulation. Pulse width amount. Okay. Okay, so I'm seeing a red needle show the range here. I'm not hearing a change, however, so let's mess with the LFO rate. I guess the sound is going so fast. Let's slow it down a little bit. Let's go to... Okay, it's bipolar 2, meaning it goes up and down. So technically we need to be on one directional LFO. Let's do unipolar, and then that should fix it. So now it's only going up. So now I hear like a detuned scratchy sound. Okay, let's pull up the octave. Let's hit this +1 icon in the top left. Hopefully y'all were seeing him. Hopefully my head's not in the way. I can't see my head, so it's hard to know what you guys see. Kind of like in the normal octave. Again, I wish this envelope overrode the arpeggio because I would like these sounds to kind of ring out. So interesting enough, in sound design, transients are important for our ear to grip onto it. So I've noticed that with sounds that don't have a transient don't stand out, but the moment you give it a pointiness, it stands out. So transients are very important for us, our ear, to like really enjoy sound. And that's the way our ear is built in the cochlea. Okay, so let's mess with some oscillator to oscillator modulation here. And again, it's not clear, like if I want to raise, oh, here it is, semitone value, let's raise this up 1 octave, which is 12 semitones. And I wish that, again, here it is. Okay, so here every time I ask, it's there. Okay, so here's the volume level. So if I wanted to work on this part of the sound, DCO2. Giving it that subtle pitch bend, so it kind of. Then we can have the LFO control the pulse width modulation, or the, what does it say, manual? I guess manual. And envelope 1 can control that as well. So now let's do some cross mod. So now 1 is modulating 2. That's probably for lower frequency sounds. Now 2 to 1, we have to unlock 1. Let's hit Alt to reset. Okay, let's see. Those textures, I don't really use a lot of modulation outside of FM. Let's add some filter in here. So now we're moving into kind of like TB303 range. Let's add some chorus. See what saturation can do. I hit reverb by accident. I did a bit of saturation. Just gonna pull up some of those harmonics. Let's see what coarse noise means. Okay, it's literally just noise. And we can turn the gate on or off. So this is the noise. I actually like it. It's pleasant. So for those who don't know, my DX7, my Yamaha DX7 has like a noise to it, but it adds to the uniqueness of the sound because it's completely random. So noise is one of those things that it's a small detail, but it can make your sound feel really unique. Okay, so now let's play different chords. You could also have your arpeggio range go to 3 octaves. So it just keeps going up. We're just going to keep it on range 1. Kind of like a mono. I like it wide, but I kind of like it mono at the same time. Let's add some reverb. Maybe that can stereoize the sound. Pull the mix level down. Let's use actually the early reflections knob, and let's see what it sounds like with just early reflection. Let's make the room smaller. So this is what we're adding to the sound. Sounds really good. Bring the dry level in. Let's blend these in. I'm going to open up the low cut so it's not cutting frequencies, because a room doesn't just block the lows. I kind of like the sound. Let's add a little attack. Give it like a duck sound. Okay, let's save this as like a duck. Let's just call it the duck synth. We'll take off that duck type sound. Let's go to synth, duck. Probably should label as ARP. So let's save this as, let's go back. So I'm going to quickly save these presets. I'm going to move that one to the trash can and then call it ARP duck. Okay, now we're going to take off the duck feature basically. And what else do we have? Truncation. Whoa. Take off arpeggio. And here's the sound without arpeggiating, which it sounds like a mess. Let's turn off. And let's get rid of the filter envelope and the pitch envelope. Oh, still scratchy. Have a lot of noise. And what else? Generating noise in here. Could be the saturator. Trying to figure out why it's so bitey. I might have to start from scratch, but I'm trying not to start from scratch. Let me figure out why it's bitey. Let's turn off the oscillator. All right, it's just oscillator 2. It's just up an octave. Let's pull it back down an octave. Detune it. Just level it more. It's crazy what chorus can do to make it sound less harsh, because it's spreading the energy apart. That's why. Okay, let's start from scratch, because I don't know why this sounds so harsh. Okay, so now we have a sawtooth, and as you can see, it's kind of like we're going to make the same sound over and over and over again. So this time we're going to make a pad. Let's have it slowly kind of build. Let's give it an attack time, then tell it to open up to that amount, envelope 1. I'll give it a really long attack. See how that attack didn't last? And again, I wish these LFOs weren't so extreme, because I would control the filter amount with this LFO. So when it rises up, it goes like like that. But let's do cutoff amount. And then let's see how it's very extreme. It's like, let's sync it to the tempo. And I wish this like locked into the tempo. It does. So 16, 8. It's way too fast. Now that's cool. I don't know if we can make an envelope with that, but you can automate it in the case that you want to do that. That'd be a cool effect. So let's see if we can modulate the LFO rate as a destination. Let's see. This is a little more advanced, but let's do LFO 1 rate. And then we want to modulate this with envelope 2. Let's use envelope 2, and let's see if this works. So this is backwards. Let's flip it. So what helps is the red icon. It helps me know what's actually going on. So let's flip this. So if I'm right, envelope 2. Oh, that's the attack time. Okay. So as you can see, the rate goes up. This is the maximum rate value. And the attack time determines how long it takes to get to that max value. So that's an interesting effect. I kind of also want that to do left-right panning. So let's see if we can control the pan with the LFO, and let's do panning. Let's see what this sounds like. Interesting. It's not as precise as I like it to be, but it's the sound that I want. Because it just like fades and then it's good. Let me save this before I like mess something up. So I like that one. Let's call that like moving pad. Let's call it pad house moving. Let's add some chorus. Let's save this as pad house moving chorus. Now let's add some effects like reverb. And now this reverb, I want it to hit and then have a quick fade. So let's make it short room size. And I want the reverb level up and the decay time fast. Let's make the size kind of hard to hear when this sounds not. All right, so I want the decay to be short. I guess the sound, I forgot it. We have an attack on the sound, so it's going to take a while to even. I kind of like that final version. Let's save that as like pad house. Anytime I do variations, I try to keep it the same preset name and then different variations. Let's call it like evolution. Okay, so I'm gonna add some more chords in here so that we have more stuff. And in this case, let's raise the tonic, the fifth and the ninth. Okay, so that's a pretty cool sound. Let's go back to default. So whenever I'm playing harmonies, usually I'm going to map out a pad. Let's start from scratch again. The envelope is the main thing because the envelope shifts between the harmonics of the sawtooth, because the sawtooth has a lot of, it's even harmonics, and I believe the pulse wave or square wave is odd harmonics. So the filter is just shaving off harmonics in the sound to give us different chord tones. Once you shave the sound all the way down, you get a sine wave. And that's essentially what a sawtooth is at the core, just stacked up sine waves. So this time, let's use some filter modulation like we did before. Let's do envelope 2 this time, controlling the cutoff frequency. And then let's give it an attack, a decay curvature. This creates like a brass sound because it's like opens up and then closes. Now, we have to give it an amount. There we go. Now, oscillator 2, I want the envelope 2 to also control amplitude of the second oscillator. So let's go to DCO2 level, and I want that to be a detuned sound. So it's like detuned and then it decays. So it sounds really brass-like. Let's set the lowest value for the frequency. This is more like a lo-fi. Let's give it some dimension with some early reflection reverb. Let's give it a wide width, low size of the room. So this synth is not the easiest like interface to deal with. So if you're a beginner watching this, this isn't a very advanced interface. This interface is not that easy to understand. So a lot of it is not visual. And so you have to understand the core principles of this. So let's call this brass and call it like 80s brass, something like that. Now I want to do what I did before, which was create an envelope or an LFO over the pan. So let's do envelope 2 and let's control the pan. So now the envelope will fade and so will the pan. We'll go from left to right or vice versa. So it starts left, ends right. Now I wonder if, they have what's called alternative bipolar. And what that means is we can control basically every time the key hits, it will pan to each side. So let's control the pan per note. Let's turn this up. So now I'm hitting the same key and it's pan left and right. This is one of my favorite features of the Prophet synth. Only thing I don't like is when it's polyphony, it doesn't pan each note. So that's something I don't like. Now there's probably a setting for that somewhere, like notes somewhere. Let me see. Let me look around first. So again, I don't like how if you play a lot of notes, it's all pan to the left. My goal is to pan some notes to the left. Oh, you know what? It might be because this is on. Let me make sure it's not because I did something. I'm pretty sure it's because it's not panning per voice. So that's something interesting. It's cool sound though, either way. So to demonstrate what I'm saying, let's arpeggiate the note. As you can hear, each note is going left or right. So I'll just make it subtle so that it doesn't hard pan your sounds. That was kind of dope. Let's record that in. That was dope. This is called this brass big or something like that. So, because I don't remember exactly what I did to that preset, but let's call it 80s brass big, because I did add reverb and note alternative. Now let's start from scratch. And what I want to do now is create more of a pluck transient type sound. So I want the envelopes to have just short decays. So by default, I don't think this is I don't think envelope 1 controls the volume. I think it just has its own amplitude envelope, which is interesting. So we need to control that. So let's set it to where envelope 1 controls the total velocity or the amplitude of all the sound. Let me figure out where that is. A lot of these parameter names are named like stuff that you guys usually don't say. So it's kind of weird trying to figure out what it's called. Main volume. Okay, so envelope 1 now controls the main volume. Now what's weird though is that there's sustain still, even though this says no sustain. So that doesn't make sense. I don't know how to undo the main volume. It's a little weird, quirky. I don't know if that was intended with this synth or what, but that is, let's turn the volume to 0 and see if, okay, there we go. Okay, so we have to turn the volume to 0 for it to fully go. There we go. Kind of odd, but. Let's add one of my, if you guys go to busyworksbeats.com/sounds, we have what's called a sounds vault. And what I'm going to do is drag in, if I even have it on my computer. I moved my hard drive, so hopefully I have it on this computer. I want to pull in, so there's some MIDI in the sounds vault. And what I'm going to do is pull up this one. We're going to pull up the nostalgia one. Let's do this because it has a melody over top. Okay, so that original melody was made on a piano. So let's make it sound normal with this synth. So I'm trying to figure out why it sounds so jumpy. That decay curvature sounds super weird. That oscillator too. Now, if I could figure out how to pan oscillator 1 from 2, that would be cool. There's a lot of manual stuff you have to do, which is a little tedious. Like, for example, panning oscillator 1 to 2. Let's just use envelope 2 to control the pan of... Now, can we do both? It looks like maybe we can't do individual. I stand corrected. So the pan value is only for the entire sound. Can't do it per voice, or per oscillator, I should say. All right, so I'm learning like how this synth actually works. Okay, so the question is, what do we want to do with this sound? Firstly, let's switch the voicing. So I want it to sound bigger, so let's add a reverb to make it sound wider. Let's add some decay curvature. Or delay, I said decay by accident. Here's some delay. Now I'm not hearing the delay. It says on, but I don't hear it. It's kind of weird. It says it's on, but I'm not. Okay, now I hear it. Okay, so that was a little odd. Let's see with the value. The amount's up pretty high, but I don't hear the delay. It's a little quiet. Maybe because the frequency cutoff was on. There we go. And let's give it more feedback. This just seems wrong. Oh, maybe because the sound. No, that can't be it. Kind of weird because the amount's all the way up, feedback is up. You would think the delay would be super long. It's like super short. So this delay is not normal. I don't understand. Something's off about this one. Could be because the volume fades. That might be actually why. Okay, that's why. Okay, it's because of my modulation over the main volume. I was wondering why. There we go. So now let's create like a synth sound. So now I'm just gonna go in. I'm gonna record melodic notes. And let's record minor. Okay, so random notes. So let's add this filter to create like a moving sound. And let's add envelope 1. So let's make this a mono legato lead. Let's have the filter go down over time. Let's start from scratch actually, because I have to re-record what this actually was. Let's go to like 890, 88 BPM. Let's record like an R&B lead. And let's pick a key. Let's see, minor. Let's do C sharp minor. Whoops. Minor, there we go. Let's fix this synth. So right now, we need to make it mono legato. Now in FL, it's playing multiple notes with the chord mode. Let's take that off chord mode, minor. There we go, and then mono legato. Let's just record that. Okay. Okay, so let's add some delay to animate that. Let's do time sync, and let's do like 1/8. Let's do either 1/8 or 1/4. I think I'm making it go faster. Here we go. Let's add some reverbs, pull the wet level back. So it's gonna soften out the sound. Chorus is gonna detune the sounds, but let's add oscillator 2s to do a manual detune. So we'll call this like West Coast lead. Let's add a little portamento so it. All right, let's call this lead West Coast 1. And again, I wish I had beats to go behind this stuff, but a lot of my stuff, let me see if I can find a beat, okay, that we could produce over. So a lot of this, as I'm sound designing, I want to sound design in context. I don't just want random sounds. I want sounds that I'm actually going to use. So let's add a West Coast beat and then add sounds over top as if I'm producing over top this beat. Okay, let's switch back. Turn this down. I forgot what key I was in, so I'm not. Let me figure out what key we're in. I'm going to use scalar 2. Forgot the key. So we're in the key of B flat minor. So I'm going to right click here, go to B flat, which is A sharp. And then the key is minor, or scale is minor. It's not going to hear my sound in context. This is a West Coast beat, so let's add the West Coast. Okay, so it works over that beat. So that's a good way to test your sounds so that they're usable, not just random presets. Okay, let's make another lead since let's start default. Now this time I want to make an R&B lead. So I'm going to drag in one of my 21 Savage tracks. And let's mute the first one. So that was B flat minor. I'm just going to rename this so I don't have to keep figuring out what the key is. This one I forgot the key. I don't remember. So I got to figure out the key with scalar 2. Reset, hit delete. Oops, delete. Okay, so we're in the key of F sharp minor. So that helps when I sound design because now I can go into here, just right click, hit F sharp, and then make sure the scale is minor. So now when I'm sound designing. Okay, so firstly with leads, I usually keep it on mono legato mode so it slurs the note. Let's add a little portamento to give it that 90s vibe. So I like the tone. Let's just add like maybe chorus. Chorus might be too much. So I like the sound. We're just gonna leave this as is. Let's call this like R&B lead 1 or lead R&B 1. Lead R&B 1. And then we'll add a modified one with the filter. So let's have this filter move over time with envelope 1 with a quick decay curvature. So it kind of muffles the sound. Let's add a little resonance. So it has that meow meow. Let's drop it down an octave. And it sounds a little quiet, so let me reset the volume here. There we go. Maybe let's add some early reflections on the reverb. So the early reflections kind of pull it forward, but it still makes it feel like a real sound. So on this sound, I like the sound. I just want it to have a little vibrato. But the thing is, the LFO is so extreme on this plugin that it's a little hard to use vibrato type technique. But let's try it. Let's do LFO 1, sine wave, bipolar direction, and then let's add destination, oscillator 1 pitch, and that will control the vibrato. And I'm going to use it like 0.3 is the value. Seems like the lowest. Let me see if I can hit control. So it's at 0.1. So it seems like we can go all the way down to 0.1. So that's more of a realistic, but I had to hit control to get to that micro value. You probably can't hear it. So I'm just going to copy this value to make it more extreme. So that's at 5.7%. So I'm literally at 0.1%. So it's a subtle pitch wobble, but it's very subtle. Now let's do the same thing here. Let's use the LFO, same value. Let's use that, but on the panning. So now the lead sound will subtly pan left and right in a very, very subtle way. I'll exaggerate. So add a little delay. Let's give it a cutoff, a low pass filter cutoff. So it has a little depth. I think coarse makes it too modern. Now let's set this starting envelope amount to determine how bright the sound, to determine how bright the sound starts. So for more muffled sound, we're gonna pull envelope 1 down. So let's have two versions. Let's have R&B lead bright, and then we'll have one that's R&B lead dark. Let's do lead, R&B bright, and then we'll lower the value, and then call this one R&B dark. So 2 presets out of 1. So far we have a lot of presets. So let's see, lead, R&B 2, or no, R&B dark. And let's see how many presets we have so far. Let's do new, desktop. We have 13 presets. So we have pads, lead, brass, arpeggio, bass, and pad. Why is this pad different? Okay, I guess it was based on size. So we have arpeggio, bass, brass, lead, pad. I'm missing sound effect and synth. So for those, I'm going to quickly sound design because these won't have as much context. So let's record a little synth line. Let's record. Let's do that again. That was actually too slow. Okay, so that's the synth. Let's we got that last tone here. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is create a synth that's like kind of quirky. Let's load up a new synth. So this bass, I really like the bass from this. Let's record that. So I forgot the actual BPM of the real record. Nextly, let's go to the next sound and let's make a, what did I say, a synth sound. So this one's going to be a little more quirky, probably going to be pad based or like more harmonics based. Let's record that. Hopefully that chord works. Okay, so it's a little bright right now because you're playing so many layers. So I'm gonna see what we can do here. Let me see. I think that beat was like 145. Actually, let me go back because that's going to throw off the MIDI. I'm trying to decide what. Okay, so for this synth, I wanted to have a lot of portamento and then like a weird filter modulation of some sort. Let's modulate it by the LFO like we did before. Actually, let's do unipolar. And let's do filter cutoff. So it's just going to go up and down. And let's control the pan, but this time with the bipolar sine wave. So now it goes left and right. And then I want the rate of the LFO to be controlled by LFO envelope 2. So it will either go up or down based on that. Okay, LFO1 rate. So we could have it start high, go low. Let's see what it sounds like. Kind of like the sound, but it repeats. It's just a unique sound. So I'm deciding which, okay, so let's go the opposite way. I like it going the opposite way. That's a really unique sound. So let's save this right here. Let's save that. So that's what I would call a synth sound. It's just a very unique sound. Synth. Let's call that like West Coast. Now this one, I'm just going to go to its own pattern here. And let's stretch these chords out so that it actually plays. Quantize. And then we're dragging out the notes here. So again, you wouldn't really play that just as a chord, but in context, it fit into that track. Okay, so let's give it some characteristics to make it sound cool. And let's end on a solid chord here. Let's try major. All right, so firstly, we want to create a reverb of some sort. So let's turn the long tail off and use early. Let's turn it on. Let's turn the portamento down just a little bit. So as I have it here, let's save this because this is less, with that portamento up so high, it's kind of hard to hear the tone. So let's save that. And now I want an LFO to really wobble the pitch, but at a very small amount, but at a fast speed. Let's do LFO 2, and then let's select the oscillator 1 pitch, and then let's select 0.1. We have to hit Control, left click and drag. So it's 0.1%. And then what we're gonna do is go to LFO 2, and we need to turn up the rate of the LFO. So this is at a really high frequency, 50 Hertz. So if I exaggerate this. So let's put it somewhere around 5 Hertz. And then put the value at 0.1 so it's not so going nuts. Okay, so this is microscopic movement. 0.1% is the lowest I can go. So hit Control, left click, and drag. So the pitch is wobbling, but it's very subtle. So this sounds pretty cool. Okay, so now this sound is probably maxed out as far as cool as it could be. Now we're gonna let people also get in there and tweak the presets that they want. So let's call that Synth West Coast 3 because I changed little things about the sound. So any variation, I usually save that. Also, we're gonna mess with the noise. That's gonna add texture to the sound. Also, we have amplitude modulation from DC01 and 2. But we don't have 2 on, so let's turn that on. So now sound is going to thicken up based on the phasing that we use, because this by default is set to detune. If I reset this, it's just going to sound kind of stacked. So if we mess with the detune, I wonder if we can modulate the detune amount. So let's go to Mod Matrix 2. So I'm really glad they have 2 mod matrices. And let's go to, we want to control the detune from DCO2 as the destination. So DCO2 and DCO2 detune, so we can. So here I'm going to use LFO. Let's do a unipolar LFO. And then let's turn the amount up. So here's oscillator 2. Now detune by itself, you're not hearing the detune. Okay, so that's 1, and then here's 2. So now we have a really unique sound. It's just a bunch of random decisions that add up. Let's open this filter. And let's give these sounds more release tail. So when I hit a sound, it fades. Now by default, we have to select envelope 1 to control the main volume. And then we have to turn the main volume down to 0. And then turn this up. Kind of weird way to control the velocity, but that's how it works with this plugin. So usually envelope 1, let's see something here. So the release tail is not doing what I'd expect, which it is visually, but it's not audibly. We should be able to hear the sound released. So I'm not sure why that's not. Could be something I'm overlooking. kind of a weird feature. Usually release tails aren't this complicated to like add to your sound. And their decay is like, so I don't know what it is about this modulation. It just sounds not fluid. So I'm not going to mess with that. Let's switch that back to none. Let's see what else can we do to this sound. So that's a really dope sound. So let's save that. I think that's probably the best version of that sound. And again, let's call it version 4. Okay. How long have we been on this video? Let's see. It's been an hour. So I can kind of tell it's been an hour. So I'm going to keep making these presets for you guys. I just wanted to show you how to use the new Kepler XO and show you guys how to think and like just think about sound design. It's not like you always know what you're creating. Sometimes you create a bass sound, B-A-S-E, and then you tweak little things, and then you just save different versions of it. All right, so that's how you can think a little bit of cooler sounds in this plugin. My brain's kind of losing thoughts. Thank you guys. Again, I'm going to give you a bunch of free presets if you just go to busyworksbeats.com. Look at the top of the website where it says free downloads, and then I'll have these in a folder in the next 24 hours from posting this video. Peace out, guys.